Order. As you can see, we're missing member Metzger and member Beard. Apologize for my audio. It's a little tough with this mask on. So we don't have any minutes. We have no appearances by members of the public or county employees. I did want to mention two things. One, that we have a hard 5 o'clock end time. So if we go past that, we will have to finish up at a stand-up. The other thing is Administrator Rodriguez emailed you a COVID recovery guide a few minutes ago, so you should have that also now. And with that, obviously the change notices on this also, like we've been doing every meeting. And the first item is 4A, 1A, and that's request approval of a resolution postponing delinquency date interest for the first installment of 2019 payable on 2020 property tax payments pursuant to 35 ILCS 200/21-40 C1B. And first off, I would entertain a motion to approve this in a second so we can discuss it. Motion by member Barnett, second. I'm sorry, member, there you are, Carlo, down there. A second by member Obestelli. Okay, Ms. McNeil, I don't believe is here, and I don't think we have her on the phone. But I guess we could still go ahead and discuss it. I don't know, I'm gonna have the Administrator Rodriguez start us up on this.
Certainly, thank you, Chairman. And I know that I had expected Treasurer McNeil to join us. So if I can try to answer any questions that you have, or if you would wish to have conversation until we can locate her. She must have had something come up, a phone call or something. So I'm happy to attempt to represent her in this regard. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Someone want to ask a questions, or Member Barnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Rodriguez, I know that Chairman McIntyre had a call earlier this week with some of the school superintendents from McLean County regarding this proposal and how this might impact them. Chairman McIntyre is not there, is he?
He is not.
Okay. Do you know how that went, or what the school superintendents said about this proposal?
I do know at a high level, he and I regrouped about his conversation, and he said it went very well. Of course, I'm representing third party what those conversations were about, but the takeaway for us to know is that, of course, superintendents are concerned about getting installment payments so that they can plan for their budgets. And Ms. McNeil assured the chairman, and the chairman assured the superintendents that installments would move forward with this type of plan. We know that, for example, I'm getting used to the mask life, excuse me, that the banks, for example, who pay the county property taxes through escrow, that will likely continue. Those types of ACH transfers are likely not going to be changed simply because of any changes in due dates of property taxes by our treasurer. And so in all, while they're likely concerned overall in the long game of their own financial situations, like most of us are, I think the takeaway from what the chairman told me was that it was positive.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A follow-up, if I could, and if this is a better question for Treasurer McNeil, please just say so, and I can hold off until then. Is there concern at all with us pushing the date back, that any of the lending institutions, as you said, that are holding taxes in escrow, that they're going to hold those payments and not pay them when the first tax bill is due? Or are we still confident that all of at least our local lending institutions are going to pay those taxes on time at that June 7 the middle of June date that,
The middle of June. Thank you, sir. Yes, as best that I can represent my conversations with Ms. McNeil, because I had those same questions. You cannot predict what all the lending institutions will do, but it was her estimation that a certain percentage of lending institutions always pay the escrow on time, and that she feels that that will still be the case, even if the date were changed.
I guess my thought would be that if any lending institutions decide to hold on to that money and to not pay it because of the waiving of interest or penalty fees, that this committee would probably like to know who those lending institutions are, should that happen.
I do believe Ms. McNeil keeps very good records of who pays when and how, and if that is able to be released, I wouldn't be able to speak to that, but she would, and I'm sure she will share that with you if she can.
Okay.
I wanted to add that normally she makes distributions, 3 distributions in the month of June, I believe it's right. And I don't think that will change, other than the fact that maybe the first distribution won't be, a bigger percentage as it normally would. I think those percentages might change, but I think that there will be some money coming out right away.
Correct.
So I think, it's a case where taxing bodies won't get the full amount the first shot, but again, I think they'll get it as it goes along. So that alleviates a lot of my concerns.
This is Lori, since I can't be on video. Just wondering if Ms. McNeil has any plans to maybe reach out to at least some of the larger institutions that she would know which ones usually have the largest escrow amount for us, and just encourage them to, send it over to us, even though we've extended the due date.
I can certainly, Member Woolrab, this is Camille. I can certainly reach out to our treasurer and encourage that. I have not had that specific discussion with her, but certainly that is an option for us.
And this will go on to exact, correct?
It should,
And the
yes,
full board, I
the
mean,
full board.
so there will be more opportunity to discuss again, or get answers to those questions, if it passes today. So I'm just putting that out there. Any other questions or discussions, Member Erickson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, and this is probably better directed at the treasurer as well. What was the original due date? Was it June 1st? Was that
Yes.
the due date?
On or about June 1st. It depends on if the June 1st date is a Saturday or not, but it was on or around that date. It could have been the 3rd.
First Monday, I
The
think.
first Monday of June, sir.
Okay. And then secondly, I'm fine with what we're proposing. My concern was I did want this extension to be at least the same length of the shelter at home order. So shelter at home order went into effect approximately, and I don't have the exact date, maybe March 20th. So we're going to be about 50 days, and this extension will be 50 days approximately. My next question would be, if we need to come back and revisit this, can we revisit the September 17th? I'm not proposing we do this today, but what I am asking is, can we add 30 days to that if the shelter at home date of April 30th is extended? When would we do that, I guess, when?
I would have to, I would assume that this committee could revisit the penalty due dates at any point in time that they wish to. It's at the wishes of this committee. So it is Ms. McNeil who can decide when the due date is for the taxes, but it is this committee's at your discretion. So you could revisit that should, for example, Governor Pritzker extend the shelter in place order. You would have the ability to come back and discuss it.
Okay.
And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
So we would then have the ability that if the shelter at home order is extended, that we could potentially in June or July go in there and say, on the September 17th date, we want to extend it as well.
That is what my understanding is at this time. I know that Ms. Woods, who is with us in the virtual room, reviewed the statutes related to this action. So Ms. Woods, if I'm mistaken in any of my assumptions, please do speak up. But it would be my assumption as such. Ms. Woods?
You are correct. As far as I know, the committee can change those dates at any time.
All right, that would be for the September payment. So thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank you for letting me serve the treasurer. And if you have any other questions, I would be happy to entertain those after the meeting, and I will have the treasurer follow up. So thank you so much. Chairman, I'm going to go sit down now.
All right,
It's okay,
thank you.
thank you.
So the second item then is 4A2. I know it's not. We're ready to go on then with 4B, which is the
That's me anyway.
that's right. The motion would be request approval of amendments to the McLean County Targeted Development Loan Program in response to the COVID-19 impact. And so again, I would entertain a motion in a second for discussion. Motion by Member Barnett, second by Member Robustelli. Okay, and we have Mr. Hoban with us now, but Administrator, why don't you go ahead and start?
Absolutely. I thank Patrick Hoban for joining us again. Mr. Hoban has been working tirelessly since we met on the 1st to put together some information for us. Hi there, Patrick. And also to research what might be some options for McLean County relative to the Targeted Loan Development Program. I know that county administration does have some recommendations, but they're very congruent with what Mr. Hoban is about to present to you. And so with that said, because we don't have a significant amount of time this evening, I will happily, at your pleasure, turn it over to Mr. Hoban so he can bring us the information.
That sounds fine.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing? I think we're gonna switch it over so you can see my screen. First, I need to know the member Erickson, is that a Cubs jersey or a Sox jersey you're wearing?
The Cubs jersey.
Cubs, okay.
I wore that for Member Barnett, so just to point that.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right, good to go. Okay, yes, Patrick Hoban, Economic Development Council, back to talk about this again. The agenda is basically the challenge, the struggle, and the resolution that we'll go over. The challenge we know we discussed last time is that the EDC County Microloan Program has been difficult in the past and underutilized, but we have had large impact to non-essential businesses and they need funding. The struggle right now, though, is we've talked to quite a few banks since our last meeting just to find out how we could partner and move forward with some of these programs. And they have actually said right now that that Paycheck Protection Program is going gangbusters, and there's plans probably for a phase 4 to inject another $250 billion into that. Their recommendation unanimously, while they're happy that we are talking about this and getting it lined up to assist, is that we wait until the Paycheck Protection Program, the EIDL, anything the state has been utilized, and then help out everybody that's left. The fear would be that we would release this now and then people could take advantage of both programs, leaving us with little to help out everybody that remains. With that in mind, we did send out a comparison sheet with some recommendations that we did receive. And this is kind of like where we're at in 2018, what we heard, and then some of our suggestions. I'm gonna see if I can actually see my screen right now because all of your faces are there. So I can only see half of it. So the concept was, we had the McLean County Small Business Micro Lending, which is funded about $600,000. We'd recommend right now actually breaking that down into two $300,000 funds. One would be a bridge program, and the other one would be a gap financing program, similar to what we had before, just with some different recommendations to hopefully speed things up. The idea of the gap program is that people would go into a lending institution and apply for a certain amount of funds. Our recommendation is that we would cover up to 20% of whatever that loan is. This does not include startups at this time. This is converting these funds to help out our existing businesses. And also, as far as terms go, it was recommended at a 0%. We still think a 1% would be okay, just to try to have some money coming back in to replenish this for future loans, but also making them 2-year loans. Another thing, that 1% is actually in line with the Paycheck Protection Program that the feds have to offer. The closing fee wise, we don't agree that there should be a closing fee like there was in the past. We're trying to assist right now. No application fee as well. Collateral wise, it would be what the banks recommend. And then processing time, though, this is what I think is key, and what you guys were all really pushing for was shaving down the process time. Because in the past, it would actually go from the EDC to the SBDC to the CDC to the Finance Committee and then the board for approval. That would normally take 30 days. We're recommending that if it comes through the EDC, that it could take hopefully just 20 days. So EDC and CDC approval. Our CDC, the Community Development Corporation, is actually made up of local community leaders and financial institutions for final recommendation. There's a timeline again where it shows the 30 days and the 30 days and how we can shave that down. Also on the confidentiality side, one of the sticking points in the past was that everything that you're about ready to see below ends up becoming a public document. This way, we would try to recommend that it be handled the same way that Brandt's audit is and Rivian's audit, where you can come in and see the files, but we wouldn't actually publish them, so it would not become a FOIable document. The one thing that we included that's highlighted in yellow is trying to meet the needs of the bankers that we've talked to so far, that they would actually prove that they had applied or the funds are gone for those programs that are there, so that this program actually comes in at the end to be able to help out anyone who did not get the funding. That is essentially a grant at this point. Also, I didn't think that we needed projections going forward, because right now, if you talk to any business, nobody knows what those projections are going to be. So I don't think those models are really going to matter right now. I do agree, though, that 3-year historics for income, cash flow, and the balance sheets would be prudent. Federal tax returns, the same. Personal finance statement, the same. As far as the schedule of debt, mortgages, loans, it's the same thing that the banks would require. So it's essentially, they would have to go into a bank, get a letter from a bank, and then come back to us, and then we would go through and double check everything to make sure it's on the up and up before making a recommendation. Legal documents, same, whatever the banks required. As far as business plans and monthly income goes, that was normally there for startups. I don't think that we need to see a business plan of an established business. Eligible businesses, our recommendation, which this is definitely flexible, is just something that popped into mind. It'd be businesses that are currently in commercially zoned properties, and they'd be prioritized by industry. So there's different industries that have higher multipliers than others. We can definitely wiggle room on this. It's not a best practice. There's just, I know that manufacturers tend to have a bigger impact on the economy than some of the retailers. So helping out a small manufacturer that might have 2 people could have a bigger ripple effect in our economy than a flower shop, for instance. Restrictions, strictly for working capital. I don't really want people taking this money out to expand their business at this time. It's really just trying to get it in the hands of the people that need it. Definitely have to have a COVID impact statement. That would have to be required in order to get the funding from the feds to the state anyway. The deferments would be to make payments not due until January. There was a recommendation for a loan forgiveness. I thought I heard last time we talked that this was not supposed to be a grant program, so we recommended no on that one. But the overall goal across the board, and even what we discussed before, was to be a supplement to the current COVID programs, so that you would definitely go through the feds because they've got some good programs, then hit the state, and then once those are not there or these businesses do not qualify, we would be standing ready to assist. Marketing, the smaller program would be geared towards the 10 employees or less, and then the other one would be 50 employees or less. Just because we know that some of the larger employees, they have accounting firms lined up that are helping them right now. And like some of you have mentioned, the smaller mom and pops don't, and they're the ones that are in need assistance. In summary, I recommend right now that we continue working with the banks. Currently, like mold this, whatever feedback you guys have, we can include. Also, I believe that Camille sent out the recovery guide, which was just published last night, and then have everybody follow up on beingprepared.org. And that's my brief presentation with a lot of data in there. I'm happy to answer any questions or take suggestions.
Okay, I don't have everyone on the screen, but does anyone have any questions?
Carlos got his hand up.
Okay,
Yep. Thank you very much for this. This is really helpful. I just have a couple questions about some of the descriptions, and I just want to make sure I get some clarifications. So line 21 in justifications, the suggestion was a letter from lender and proof of rejection from federal and state programs. What about a scenario where somebody has received federal and state program funding, but they need a little gap money for payroll or something? Why wouldn't we make that? Why wouldn't we open it up for that possibility? Shouldn't it just be letter from lender and proof of that they have received this funding, and then they have to
Yes.
they have to demonstrate why they need more, as opposed to the way I read this now, you'd have to be rejected to be eligible, and I don't think that's
Right.
the spirit of what we're trying to do here.
I completely agree. I didn't even consider that scenario. So that's an excellent recommendation.
Line
Rejection.
20, capital item descript. Yeah, so rejection just is a bad word there. Line 20, it says capital item description. Capital item, what would, is payroll considered a capital item? What would be, what's inclusive or exclusive of that description?
So
What if someone didn't need to buy things? They just needed to get, through, they needed to pay a utility bill because they've been shut down. I mean, I'm just trying to imagine all the scenarios. What would we?
Before, it was actually required that you had the supplier, the serial number, the original manufacturer, the time and sequence of purchase. It was a really detailed list. The capital item description is just describe what you're going to use the money for.
Okay, great. That's what I wanted to make sure of. Okay, and then line 30, eligible businesses. I understand and appreciate the thinking in terms of prioritized by industry, particularly in terms of impact. The COVID-19 presents an interesting dilemma in that last statistic I heard, almost 2/3 of those that have been displaced are frontline service workers, and that isn't typically what we think about when we think about incentives, but those are individuals that are now out of work and not buying things and displaced. So I wonder, I mean, the way I understand this is it wouldn't exclude the possibility of retail and restaurants, but you would be taken in consideration along with others, the overall impact of businesses more generally. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we formulate that is something that we still need to work out and get everybody to agree on. But
okay. I appreciate that. I mean, what I'm interested in is flexibility a little here with a rationale when this would come forward to explain why you're recommending a set of applicants over others and those kinds of things. And so I don't want it to be too prescriptive. And so that's just, I wanted to make sure that there's some flexibility there. Yeah, that's all. Those are the questions that I had. I also just want to make a comment on that guide that you put out. Extremely helpful, very easy to understand. And I would encourage all of my colleagues on the county board and the community, please share that with business leaders, friends, and on social media. It's a wildly helpful guide for our small business community. Thanks, Patrick.
thanks. Yeah, we appreciate that. Mr. Erickson has his hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, I concur with Carlo. I do about eligible businesses. Would like to see, restaurants be included in that, especially small ones, and maybe a flower shop here or there. I know that you're not incorrect when you probably say that the impact of manufacturing would probably have a greater impact to the community than maybe a flower shop or a restaurant, but you can't really sell that to a restaurant or a flower shop. I mean, they
Right.
believe they have an impact as well. Okay, so so I would just encourage you to do that. And I would say, yes, I do like seeing this. I mean, this guide here that was put out by the EDC. I would only say that trying to apply for a PPP loan is like an experience of sitting at your computer all day and waiting for your banker to tell you, no, this is what this is what they're going to require. No, you need to revise it and submit this. No, wait a second. Our lawyers are telling us to have this in the application. Because I've experienced that myself. If you work with your banker and you are considering making a PPP application, Saturday and Sunday sitting at the computer waiting to be told what they needed next or what the change was going to be to do that. So I fear that some people may fall through the cracks just because the banks are being very careful about what they're submitting.
Mhm.
Some of them are. I mean, I think they want to make sure there's no fraudulent applications and that they're not submitting fraudulent applications. But you know, I don't know what the answer is, Mr. Hoban, but I mean, I wish we could tell the SBA to be clear, but I guess they're under the gun too. So I guess we're all going to have to struggle through this for a while as to what's required. And because I think if you go to one bank, you might find out one thing. And if you go to another bank, you might get a different answer. So I just wanted to
Yeah,
point
so
that
I
somebody
agree.
could fall through the gaps there.
They ended up releasing the program before all the regulations were written, and that's why that was happening. That we had the same feedback from all the banks we talked to. I think they're still writing it now. So hopefully it'll be ironed out pretty soon before this next round or phase 4 comes through.
I have a question. I have a question.
Okay,
I'm sorry. So I'm going to take a page out of Member Metzger's playbook here, talking about the rural villages. Some of the smaller towns don't have commercial zoning. I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, but I know the small towns have more, maybe just a retail or whatever. So we have to make provisions for those people also.
Okay. I was trying to get it more towards someone that actually had a commercial property. Is almost, that's not like a home-based business.
I understand, but again, I just wanted to make sure that we had an allowance for that.
Right. Just make sure the wording's correct. Yeah, good point.
Okay.
may I speak, Chair?
Go ahead. I'm
Thanks.
sorry.
Thank you. Patrick, thank you for doing this and taking our input on it as well. I have a question concerning, do you have a feeling for how many businesses in McLean County might fall in either of those two categories that you have at the very top? What percentage wise?
Not right now, just because that paycheck protection program, there's not a lot of requirements compared to traditional lending. That's why we encourage most people to contact their banks as soon as possible and get in that. Our biggest fear is that money runs out. When that money runs out, that's when people are going to fall through. But it's really first in, last out. I don't know how many are not going to make it at this time.
Yeah, I guess I would just like us to have some flexibility in the categorizations, those 300, the 5,000 and 20,000, letting, if there are more people who fall out in that $5,000 category, then we can shift the 300,000 from the larger ones into the smaller. And then I too have a concern about the zoning. I'm afraid that, if we lean toward more manufacturing type jobs, and I understand completely what you're saying about the financial impact, but we have, some of the smaller businesses still have employees and they still may be buying services or goods locally that would have some impact. But I'm afraid that if we lean too heavily on that we may also exclude a number of women-owned and minority-owned businesses, because last time I checked, not a whole lot of women-owned manufacturing businesses. So I want us to be very mindful that we kind of spread this around as much as possible. Thanks.
Understood. And maybe there's a way to balance it out too. So there's still prioritization, but we make sure that each type of segment has an equal amount of loans that go through, if that would assist.
Okay. Okay. All right,
Carlos?
thank you.
Actually, Member Barnett, you haven't had a chance, so if you would like
Okay.
to, please go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Hoban, you had said that in talking with some of the banks, or a lot of the banks, I suppose, in our community or Greater McLean County, they had said that they would prefer that we had hold off on this for right now
Yes.
because so much is flowing through the PPP, it's going through the SBA. So in your mind, what would be an appropriate timeline for moving forward with a proposal like this?
I would say probably within a week or 2 weeks. The recommendation is to keep communication with the banks because nobody knows how fast this money is going to go. And it also depends on when and if phase 4, another round of funding comes in. So I would like to, it's hard because it's a moving target, but I would like to be ready whenever the fallout does start, that we're standing there waiting.
Okay.
So I don't want to move too fast on it and then have it available and not get used. But yeah, it really depends on when the other bailouts come.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I really appreciate the collaboration with the banking community on this because I think this is a great example of public-private partnerships thinking about this in the best way that we can. I hate to put on you or to give the impression, just responding to Lori Worad's comment about maybe we need more in one and more in the other. So I just think we need to keep this conversation actively going, and that way, if we need to allocate a little bit more, I mean, right now it's a 50-50 split, and I think it's a good way of thinking about this. We do need something for recovery, and we need something for a micro bridge loan, and perhaps there's a way for us to incentivize paying back the micro bridge loan quicker in some way. Maybe that's by reducing the 1% market rate or interest rate or something, so that we can get more money to more people or into the recovery loan program. But I just want to emphasize the spirit of this was when we created this last year was that every year we'd be able to reevaluate this program, and that has come out. I mean, I don't think we could have planned this better in terms of having that opportunity to reevaluate it. And so moving forward, I hope we can continue to do that. So I just wanted to make that statement, is just I hope we don't box you in any way that we can, and there's a constant flow of communication between the committee and the chairman and you, so that if we need to flex in some way, we can, because I think there's consensus around that. I think people want to help small businesses, and we want this funding to do it, and we want to do it in a responsible way that is responsive to taxpayers, but we also know that we are in an emergency situation and we need to do everything we can to help our local business community.
Yeah, I completely agree with being flexible because we don't know what the future holds at this time.
Okay, anybody else? Again, I can't see anybody, so,
I know, Member Erickson has his hand up.
okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you take over that part.
Yeah.
I
Oh.
thank you, Mr. Hoban, for what you've done. I think it's a good idea. I appreciate the county board thinking about this as well. I mean, if there's $600,000 sitting there, I mean, this is the time to put it back into the economy. If there's any time to put it back into the economy, let's get it back into the economy and get it circulating. So thank you for doing that. I hope that, I hope we advertise this very well, and we get this out to the banks. That's always been an issue that people have raised before about our advertising, but thank you for what you're doing on that. And, like Robustelli said, just, if you would, just keep us posted about, what's going on. And I think we'll be able to have a good partnership going forward on this. So
Thanks. Thank you everyone for your feedback.
All right. Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to comment, or do you have a comment on it?
really county administration is just very much in support of the manner in which Mr. Hoban has approached this, which is to encourage small businesses to take advantage of the existing opportunities first, and then be agile in how we offer what's next for what we know can't possibly completely be fulfilled by all those opportunities. But we want the community, and through this amazing COVID recovery guide, to know what's out there first, but still adjust and be available. So
Okay.
we're in support. County administration is of the manner in which this has been approached so far.
Okay. I guess then, if there's no more discussion, are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed?
Aye.
All right, that passes then. Let's see, that's all, I believe. That's all we have on the agenda for today. So I appreciate your guys, Mr. Hoban, I appreciate your hard work. And this moves on then to exec. And we will, thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe and healthy.